My husband, 35, does not have a car. He sold his old one to help pay for his brother's wedding. I disagreed with this, but he had this car before we got together, so it's not a shared property. Besides that, I have my own car, so that didn't affect me until my husband started complaining about having to commute to work and hang out. He tried to get me to let him drive my car several times, but I stood firm and put a boundary, making him understand that my car would never be driven by him. One of the reasons why is because of how bad his driving is. His brother lives out of town. My husband asked if he could drive my car to the wedding, but I refused, not because I was not invited, another story for another day, but because, as I said, my car is off limits. He threw a fit, calling me unreasonable for not letting him take public transportation because he can barely stand it for 10 minutes, let alone hours. I said it wasn't my problem. That irritated him, but made him stop arguing. On the day that he was supposed to travel out of town, I woke up at 10 a.m. and couldn't find my car key. I went outside and couldn't find my car either. I was beyond angry. I called him, and as I expected, he took it and was on his way to the other town. I lost it and told him I gave him no permission to take it for 5 days and said that if he wouldn't turn around with it and come home, I'd call the cops and report it missing. His response was, "You wouldn't dare do it because you know what would happen." I hung up on him and then immediately called the police and told them about my situation. I did not tell them my husband took it because they think it's a family dispute and decided not to get involved. I just reported it missing. 2 hours later, I got a call from my husband saying he was back in town and was being held at our local police station. I went to the station and talked to the cops. My husband made a scene there, swearing over and over that I permitted him to take it and that I was acting out of jealousy and spite because he was going to attend a wedding I wasn't invited to. I took my car and went home, but he had to stay a little longer. He came home in the evening and went into a rage about how I created an awful situation and almost caused him to miss his brother's wedding. He called me vindictive, bitter, and a lunatic for calling the police on him and trying to accuse him of stealing my car. He had to leave the same day to be able to be there with his family and decided to extend his stay and still hasn't gotten back yet. Right now, his mom and brother are blasting me for what happened and calling me spiteful. Not the idiot, but I feel that there's a lot more going on here. For example, your husband sold his car to help pay for his brother's wedding, even though he needed it to commute. Is your husband prone to making bad decisions? He paid for his brother's wedding even though you, his wife, were not invited to it. I'm sorry, but what kind of marriage is this? Yeah, he and his brother are very close. I'm on bad terms also. We don't talk with his brother because he kept accusing me of trying to drive a wedge between him and my husband. He can think whatever he wants, but none of his claims are true. Unfortunately, my husband and his mom think I'm the bad guy here. Lady, you need to file for divorce immediately. This relationship is toxic and your husband is a massive idiot. Why are you still married? I'm honestly asking because there are a lot of red flags here on both sides. His family hates you. You weren't invited to a family wedding in which you are a part of the family. You don't seem disappointed that you weren't invited to said wedding. He doesn't respect you or your boundaries. You care more about an object than his wants and needs. You had no problem having your husband arrested, and you clearly didn't care about his feelings around a significant family event. You make life decisions without each other. This is not a snapshot of a healthy relationship. Everyone's the idiot here. Y'all seem insufferable and like a textbook dysfunctional couple. I read stories like this and think, why? Why subject yourself to this? I know it sounds mean, but my brother-in-law seems to be really discriminatory towards us for being a straight couple. I am bi, but have fallen in love with a man I'm going to marry. My brother and his husband were friends with my ex-girlfriend. I'm still friends with her. She's lovely, but we didn't work out together. For 5 years now, I've been dating. Let's call him Jack. We've decided to marry in a few months and have been planning for a while. The wedding's not big, less than 50 total guests, and we were going to give everyone in the bridal party a +1, but no one else. The thing is, my brother is one of my bridesmen. I have a maid of honor and 3 bridesmen, and my husband-to-be has a best man and a mixed-gender party. The last weekend, I went over to my family to hang out. Cousins played board games, and all the adults had drinks, a typical big family hangout. But my brother-in-law had a bit too much to drink and said some crappy things. It's not the first time I've heard them, just the first time in maybe half a year. He said I was a traitor to our people for marrying a straight white man. We're white. LOL. He said I broke up with my ex because I was ashamed of my orientation. He also was comparing my fiancé with my ex. Why would you date such an ugly man after such a pretty girl? He's so poor and you had a rich gay girlfriend. Not true. We're all middle class. Eventually, my brother took him home, and my fiancé took me home. I told him the next day that if he couldn't apologize to us as a couple and stop being so heterophobic, he couldn't come to our wedding. My brother is saying he was just drunk and he'll behave, and our families are backing him up and telling me to let it go. But I have yet to get an apology from my brother-in-law. My brother's threatening not to be in the wedding party, and I would hate that. But I would hate including his crappy husband in my wedding more. I told my brother I'd save him a piece of cake if he didn't come. Am I the idiot for insisting my brother-in-law cannot come without an apology to both my husband-to-be and me? Not the idiot. And wow, do people love to judge us for not adhering to what their vision of being queer should look like, huh? In my opinion, your brother-in-law needs to have a conversation with you and your husband in person, apologize to you both, and promise to be on his best behavior at your wedding for you to allow him to attend. He misbehaved. I think your brother will understand if you explain that his husband was hurtful and rude and that he must take steps to clear the air if he wants to attend. This isn't about heterophobia. This is about your brother-in-law saying nasty things about your soon-to-be husband and judging your relationship. Drinking too much is not an excuse. This is absolutely the hill you should die on. He's disrespecting you, your fiancé, and your relationship, and someone who thinks that has no place at your wedding. Your brother-in-law sucks for saying those things, and your brother sucks for condoning it. Not the idiot. Of course, stand your ground. So here's the deal. My sister married a black man. We're white. We had some family who was very outspoken about not liking it. She didn't invite them. Why? Because it's her day, and if the people there can't be on her side, why even come? Why even have a situation where they'll say something awful to our new family? He needs to apologize and still doesn't need to be there. I have always had a very close relationship with my brother. He's 3 years older than me and has been a great older brother mostly. In recent years, our relationship evolved a lot, and we were friends and siblings. He started dating his fiancée 6 years ago. She wanted us to be sisters. A year later, when I got married, she asked me to be my bridesmaid, even though I didn't have any. I said yes because it meant so much to her, and I even bought her an inexpensive but pretty dress since we did a courthouse thing. My brother and she got engaged in 2020. She announced it in the family group chat and that 2 of her friends were her bridesmaids. After the announcement, she started asking me for my opinion and help on stuff, which quickly turned into her asking me to run errands for her and even picking up the cost of certain things. I told her it seemed like something her bridesmaids would be doing with her, and she ignored me. She walked out of a cake store with her samples and never paid, but I was left behind, and they came after me for the money. I spoke to my brother about it. He told me to just go along for their special day. She invited my mom and me dress shopping, then tried to say I was paying for one of her accessories. I had never offered anything like that. My brother told me I didn't have to pay for it, and he talked to her, but then later, she was excited and wanted something for me to wear at her wedding. I started saying no to any request for help, and she and my brother got upset. He told me he wanted me to be a part of the wedding. I found that odd since I was never asked to be in the bride or groom's party, not that I wanted or expected to be. But given what they were saying and expecting, I felt like I was being used. I was open with both of them about this. My future sister-in-law ignored me again. My brother said he loved me, and if I wanted to be in the wedding, I should have said something. I said that wasn't the point. I wasn't asked, but I was being brought along like I was only there to take on the expense and heavy lifting nobody else seemed to be doing. He told me I was overreacting. Then the invitation came, and it was crazy. The venue is 3 states over in a fancy hotel in an expensive area. The dress requirements on the invite also meant expensive. To top it all off, every single gift on their registry is a minimum of $250. We can't afford all that. I spoke to my parents, who were also unhappy with how demanding the invite was, so I RSVP'd no. My brother and sister-in-law asked me why. I said it wasn't worth the expense, especially when they had already gotten money out of me, given how I was expected to keep chipping in. The extended family was outraged by this. They said a sibling's wedding is always worth the cost, and I should go and support my only sibling. My brother and sister-in-law were upset by our RSVP too and tried to talk me into coming. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If it's so important to them to have you be there and help, why aren't you part of the wedding party? And if it's so important for you to be there, why not pay for your stay? I won't be surprised if they get lots of no's on the RSVPs. It's very disrespectful and entitled of them. They're taking advantage of you under the guise of love. It's a gift grab. People can have whatever wedding they want so long as they can afford it. Expecting other people to underwrite their lifestyle is entitled. You're setting and enforcing a healthy boundary, and it's good that you're doing it early because this behavior on their part is likely to continue. You said it yourself, you can't afford it. That's a perfectly valid reason. I can't believe she walked out of a cake tasting without paying and left you the bill. This sounds planned to me. Your future sister-in-law is going to be a nightmare once they get married. I imagine the divorce will be even worse. I was watching my young niece while my sister took her baby to the doctor. We were talking about how her dad's birthday is coming up. My niece said she wanted to make him a cake. I said that was a brilliant idea and gave her my tablet to look up a recipe. She picked one and then started gathering ingredients in my kitchen with my little step stool. When I went to help her crack eggs, she said, "No, I'm making Daddy's cake all by myself." So I stepped back and just supervised for safety. We put the cake in the oven. I told her I would put it in the fridge to cool when it was done, and we would decorate it tomorrow. She was very excited when her mom picked her up, and my sister was excited too when she heard about it. Needless to say, the cake didn't turn out well. Ingredients weren't mixed properly. Proportions were wrong. I baked a new cake with the same recipe and pan. When she came over the next day, I presented the new cake as the one she had made, and she decorated it again. She wanted to by herself, but sloppy frosting tastes just as good as neat and is cuter anyway. When my sister arrived to pick up her daughter and the cake, she was thrilled. We both told her she was going to be a star baker one day, and my niece was beaming. I was talking on the phone with my sister about the party tomorrow, and she mentioned how it's incredible her daughter's first attempt at baking turned out perfect. I laughed and told her the truth, knowing my sister would keep the secret from my niece or anyone who could tell her because she's the mom. I figured she would think the story was charming and something to tell my niece when she's an adult, and star baker is a funny childhood anecdote. My sister was livid and asked what I did with the actual cake. I said I fed it to my dog because it wasn't edible. She cussed me out and hung up on me. I can't ask anyone in my social circle which of us is wrong because I don't want it getting back to my niece that she didn't make the special cake. Am I missing something? I wanted my niece to be confident and encourage her sense of independence. Did I cross a line here? Not the idiot, but your sister is a bit of an idiot if she thinks that her young child can make a perfect cake on her first attempt. I think her anger at you is due to her disappointment that she doesn't have a prodigy child. I would just keep my distance until she apologizes. For the future, just bear your sister's reasoning ability in mind. Not the idiot for swapping out the cakes. It's a totally harmless thing that would make for a funny story in the future. But I don't know how good it is for the dog to eat a whole cake, but no, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. Oh, it was a chocolate, garlic, onion, macadamia nut, rat poison cake, of course, and with grapes, just like Mom used to make. Honestly, can that aged child even read recipes? How gullible is her mom? How can she be shocked her little kid couldn't bake an edible cake on her first attempt with no directions or help from an adult? This could have been a secret between you and your sister. She's being overly dramatic. I would appreciate that you let my daughter bake a cake on her own, and when you realized it wasn't edible, you made one that was. You even had her decorate it, so now we can all actually enjoy eating the cake, while the face on that little girl will glow. Imagine if nobody ate the cake that she made. The little girl would be upset and probably never want to bake again. If I were your sister, I'd be amazed at what a fantastic aunt my child has. I'm not, but I still believe that you're awesome. Not just because you had all the ingredients on hand to make not one, but 2 cakes from scratch. We were at my mother-in-law's place for dinner, And while we were talking, my mother-in-law took a minute to remind us of her birthday, which will take place next week. My husband looked at me and said, "Oh, no need to get a cake. OP will take care of it." I was taken aback because, for one, I work long hours and will be too busy next week, and don't even know if I'll be able to attend. And two, I never agreed to make the cake, nor did I have the time or money for it, since it's probably expected to be fancy. So, I couldn't take it when he basically offered my service without consulting me. I looked back at him and said, "I never agreed to do such a thing. Can you tell me why I should do it? You never do anything for my mom." After that, the table went quiet, and everybody looked at my husband awkwardly. Given his argumentative nature, it was strange seeing him quiet like that. Once we got into the car, he yelled about how I embarrassed him and humiliated him, and how I disrespected his mother at the table. I told him he was the one who offered my service, but he said that I should have agreed, or showed I was on board initially, and then told him my honest opinion at home and in private. We got home and he started sulking, saying he couldn't even look his family in the face after the childish crap I pulled at their house. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He put you on the spot in front of everyone. That's on him. That your response was in front of everyone was because he counted on you being quiet, not wanting to make a scene. Too bad for him. If you had shown you were on board, you would be expected to do it. If you brought it up later, he'd be asking why you said you were on board if you didn't want to do it. You were put in an awkward situation and you spoke up for yourself. That's a great point, actually. I was leaning toward everyone's the idiot verdict because of the wording of OP's response. But yeah, he made himself look like the idiot. What was the alternative here? OP agreeing by default at that moment and then having to take it back later? That would seem even more awful, I think. You are the idiot. Your reply was rude, though, because it implies that you don't give a crap about your mother-in-law and would only do something for her as part of a quid pro quo. The polite response would have been, "Sorry, but I don't have time to make a cake this week, so I won't be able to do that. Please check with me first next time." Well, I'm not mother-in-law's biggest fan for raising such a misogynistic kid, and I'm not sure why her feeling respected should come at the cost of OP being so egregiously disrespected. Sure, she could have snuck in a line about how mother-in-law shouldn't take it personally, and she can always follow up to do that now, but OP defended herself. She reacted in anger to an angering situation at the moment. Effectively, that is an instinct too few people have, especially women who are told to prioritize politeness over self-respect. I think that's important enough to be prioritized way, way above mother-in-law's hurt feelings.